I would like to introduce you, and I'm sure you already know her really, because she was our host for Macmillan online conferences. She delivered a few very successful sessions. Chia Suan Chong is a writer, a teacher trainer, and a very successful author. She's based in York. She's in the room with us already. Welcome, Chia. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much, Federica, for that lovely introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Chia Suan Chong. It's great to be back here in the Macmillan Conference room with everyone. Thank you for taking time out in these mad times to spend this hour with me and with the Macmillan team. We're here today to talk a little bit about students' well-being, and I thought I might start by introducing myself a little bit more. So my name is Chia, and I am currently working from home. Now, I am quite lucky because before the pandemic started, I was kind of already working from home because I'm a writer and I do a lot of my writing from home. The difference for me is that I've got 3 very, very young children. 2 are going to primary school, or were going to primary school, and 1 was going to nursery. And now that all 3 children are at home with me, having to homeschool them, look after the 1.5-year-old, and manage and juggle between these kids, household chores, and my work has proven quite tricky. On top of which, I still deliver some webinars, virtual training, and just trying to keep all the balls up in the air hasn't been easy. And I'm sure many of you might have a similar experience. So over to you. Hi, guys. Just in one sentence, perhaps, because there's so many of you today, in one sentence, how are you doing? How are you coping? I'm assuming that most of you are also in lockdown, which means that most of you are at home and unable to give face-to-face training, face-to-face teaching. Can I also assume that a lot of you are now teaching online and are having to move your face-to-face lessons online to a virtual platform? Yes, teaching online, a lot of you are saying that, yes. Locked inside a room, yes, I feel you, I really do feel you. Okay, some of you are doing well, some of you are doing online classes at home. Fantastic. Concern about your well-being. Now, today's session is about our students' well-being, but obviously, hopefully you can get something from this session that also deals with your well-being as well. So a lot of you are teaching from home. Is it fair to say that a lot of you are teaching from home for the first time? That you are transitioning from face-to-face classes to online classes from home for the first time? Yes. So I'm getting lots of yeses. Not the first time for some of you, but if it's your first time transitioning face-to-face suddenly into online training, and this didn't even happen gradually for you, you've kind of been thrown into the deep end of the pool. So well done, you guys, for making that transition, for jumping in and trying your best to swim. So really well done. As someone said in my previous webinar, you all are heroes here. So do remember that. Now, in a face-to-face session, or rather in a non-pandemic situation, we have a lot of things around us that makes coping just a little bit easier. I mean, coping and surviving is never easy, but in a non-pandemic situation, it is just a little bit easier. Here's a quote from Hans Christian Andersen. He says, "Just living isn't enough," said the butterfly. "One must have sunshine, freedom, and a little flower." For many of us, in a lockdown situation, sunshine might be quite hard to come by, especially if you are locked down in a room, in a flat, in an apartment. If you're locked down in countries where you're not allowed to leave the house even for exercise, this might be tricky. Freedom is limited in a situation like this. And perhaps communion with nature, flowers, trees, natural scenery might be a little difficult unless you live in the countryside with lots of space around you. And because of all of this, perhaps our well-being is suffering just a little bit more. Perhaps our students' well-being just needs a little more attending to and supporting in this crazy situation. Hopefully today's webinar will give you some thoughts, some things to think about, and also some practical activities and ideas that might help you bring these into the classroom so that students might find at least some form of support that is available for them through their online classes with you. You know, I've been looking at all these memes that are going around about staying home, hashtag stay home, hashtag stay safe. And what do you notice in common? What do all these pictures have in common? Well, they're all staying home. What else do they have in common? Exactly, Lama. They are happy. Yes, Nilima. They're all very happy staying home, aren't they? The big smiles on their faces. I love the picture on the top left where you have the woman and man sitting quite uncomfortably on the sofa, working on their laptops. I mean, I bet if they sit in this position for a long time, they're going to hurt their backs. But never mind, they look very, very happy. And on the table, nicely placed, are 2 cups of coffee and what looks like a bottle of hand sanitizer and a face mask. So even at home, they're being quite safe. Bottom left, you see a mum with her kids on the floor playing. She looks absolutely in heaven. She's a big smile on her face, really happy. Everyone just looks so happy staying home. Yes, Siobhan, ideal situation, unrealistic goals. They are, yes, Fatu, they are so stress-free. And like Kevin says, she's got a 1.5-year-old and, you know, parents out there, you're doing an amazing job juggling children and work. Childcare is so stressful, especially when you have to do it 24/7 all the time. You just don't get any rest. So perhaps let's not pretend that staying at home is all smiles and happiness and joy. I must say I'm very grateful for the quality time that we get to spend at home with our children, with our hobbies, with our things. But at the same time, staying at home is not easy. Whether you have children or not, staying at home is not easy. And let's recognize this and acknowledge this. In a face-to-face situation, spotting people who need support, spotting students who might need support, it's already difficult. But teachers are told that we can spot this by noticing changes in mood. If a student is usually happy and they seem kind of off, depressed, sad suddenly. Changes in appearance. Someone who usually looks after their appearance looks really good normally, brushes their hair, suddenly they're coming into class looking disheveled and hair all over the place, not dressed like they usually do. We don't know their appetites, but we can see if a student is losing weight rapidly or perhaps not sleeping well, and we notice that they're exhausted when they get into the classroom. We might notice that they're not attending lessons as often as they used to, or perhaps a student who's usually, very good with the assignments and homework, suddenly they're not handing in their homework on time, or they're not handing in their homework at all. Perhaps they're late for class all the time and they're usually punctual. Perhaps they are not concentrating like they usually did. Now, notice I keep saying like they usually did because there are some students who just don't pay attention like ever. And it might not alarm you as much. But if a student is usually punctual, usually on time, usually concentrating, if that student suddenly has a huge change in their behavior, that's when it gets alarming. That's when we notice something needs to be done. That's when we notice they need support. Or it might be something more obvious, more overt, like panic attacks. When you see a student having panic attacks or being visibly emotionally distressed, being visibly overwhelmed by it all. And this is in a face-to-face situation. We might be able to spot these things. But when we take our class virtually, when we're teaching online, it becomes difficult to notice these things because it's easy for students to hide behind a screen. It's easy for them to hide their state of mind. And if you say, how are you doing? How are you coping? Someone who wants to hide can easily say, "Oh, I'm fine." And you wouldn't know any better because they are behind a screen and the camera's off and you can't see them. But remember, as much as it is all easier to hide behind a screen, it is also easier to open up when you're safe behind a screen. When a student feels like, they are behind a screen, they might feel more comfortable typing what they truly feel. They might feel more comfortable truly opening up about their situation. So rather than forcing a student who doesn't want to turn their camera on, you must turn it on. Rather than doing that and forcing them to turn the camera on, use the fact that it's safer behind a screen for them to open up. Use that fact to help you to understand them better. Use that to help them open up and share what really is going on with them. The pandemic and the situation we're in has been described on social media as being in the same ocean, but a different boat. We're all in the same ocean. Many of us globally are facing the same situation, pandemics, lockdowns. But it would be wrong of me to suggest that just because I'm in this ocean, I can relate to every single one of you out there, that I know all your problems, all your worries, all your concerns, because we might be in the same ocean, but we're in very different boats. What kind of different boats might we be in? Someone might say, I miss my friends, and this might be a real issue for someone. I miss being with people. And some people might say, I don't mind being alone at all. I don't like people. I don't miss being with people. But for some, this might be a real issue. Some might say, I miss my hobbies, and my hobbies are things I can only do outdoors. I miss mountain climbing, biking, hiking. I miss going out and playing board games with a large group of people. Someone said in my previous session, I miss escape rooms and games like that. I miss concerts and theaters and the gym, someone says. My family members are annoying me. Now, it might be easy to say we're all happy, we're a family, we get to spend some quality time together. But at the same time, we know that it can get quite tricky spending 24 hours a day, every day with your family members. It might. Some people have complained about having to spend time with younger siblings, for example. Lana says, too much quality time. That could possibly be the case. And yes, like Marco says, families always annoy each other. Some might be experiencing cabin fever, especially if you live in a flat or an apartment and you're not allowed to leave the house. This can really get to you. Cabin fever is a real thing. Some of you might be feeling bored. Some of your students might be feeling bored out of their mind. And you're thinking, oh, lucky you, I'm too busy to be bored. But hey, it's not nice being bored either. Not keeping to a routine, not knowing what to do, having lots to do, but not wanting to do it because it all seems kind of pointless. That's not a good feeling to be in. When you've got 3 kids and you can't juggle, this is totally my situation here. Juggling homeschooling and working from home at the same time. Someone says, yes, it's even worse when you're staying at home with a family that's dysfunctional, people in abusive situations. There are a lot of really bad situations out there. So just keeping that in mind, knowing that we are all in different boats, different circumstances. Some of your students might be overloaded and overwhelmed, just so much to do. If they're working from home, they might feel like they've got much more to do than they ever did before. Some might say that, hey, my boss doesn't trust me because working from home, I have to reassure my boss by over-delivering. More traditional bosses might feel a need to constantly check up on their workers or assign lots and lots of paperwork and admin. So bureaucracy is on the rise because bosses don't trust their employees working from home. And this might be an issue for some of our students. Yes, absolutely, Fatu. Micromanaging workers online can be really frustrating for some. Some of you who don't work from home normally, when you have to work from home, suddenly you're put in this situation where the boundaries between working life and private life are kind of blurred, and we can't switch off. We are emailing when we're watching television. We're emailing work when we are in bed about to go to sleep. We just can't switch off. And this can be detrimental to our mental health. Thinking too much. Now, I know many of you relate to this. We live in very uncertain times, and we're sick with worry. We're worried about the crisis, about work, about the world, about our jobs, whether we still have jobs at the end of this, about our parents, our family. It can be so stressful being plagued with worry. People might have issues with insomnia, not being able to sleep. So remembering that your students might be going through all this, and maybe this is the time to go easy on them. Maybe they're not paying attention in class, not because they're being naughty or being disruptive. Maybe they are experiencing some of these worries, some of these situations. Some people might feel very lost, like, everything just feels pointless. I know friends who are now in situations where they can't afford to pay their rent or mortgage. Some people who have lost their houses in the process because of this pandemic. People who have lost their jobs, lost their businesses. People who are very worried about their future and how they can continue to provide for their families. People who are worried about family members who are in hospital and not being able to go and see them, not being able to visit them. And these are just some examples of the different boats we might be in. Again, we're in the same ocean, but in very different boats. And it's really important that we understand that our students might be experiencing any one of these things, or maybe even things that I haven't mentioned here that are much deeper and much more difficult to deal with. So what can we do as teachers? Now, remembering that we are teachers, and I will say this again at the end of the webinar, if your students need urgent support, if you are faced with an urgent situation and you're truly, truly worried about an individual's well-being, please do not hesitate to seek professional help. Please refer that individual to a professional, to professional resources. If you work for a school, a university, you might have an in-house counselor that deals with these things. Don't feel that the responsibility is all on you, the language teacher, to deal with their troubles, their problems, their mental health. If a student truly concerns you, please do seek expert opinion and refer this to a professional. But one of the first steps to supporting our students' well-being is to get them to talk about what they're going through. Talking is the first step. We must not go out of our way to avoid the taboo topic of the pandemic, especially if we're teaching adults and grown-ups who might need this outlet to talk about this. Remember that for some of our students, this online class or webinar or session might be one of the only times of the day that they might be having a social connection with people. Whether it's a connection with their teacher or their fellow classmates, this might be the only time of the day that they have that connection. So try not to go out of your way to avoid the topic of quarantine and the pandemic and the lockdown, because for some students, they want to talk about it. This is their opportunity to talk about this. And getting them to talk about it and to acknowledge their feelings, to share their thoughts, are all great ways of supporting their well-being. But of course, we don't want to launch into dark topics and negative topics like the pandemic. I mean, hey, there's enough negativity around the world today. You turn on the news and every day it's all about the coronavirus. So how can we make this safer and more possible and feasible to do in class, so that students are not just being, depressed all the time? Like Fortu says, yes, it can be so depressing. So how can we get to them to talk about it when they want to talk about it and not force them to? Now, Nitu, absolutely bring some comic relief into your online class. It's always helpful. So hopefully today I'll be giving you some practical ideas as to how we can get students sharing and talking and discussing their own experiences, and sharing their thoughts and their feelings with you or with the class. So remembering, how can we make it safe for them to share with the class? Sarah, thank you. For younger students, for teenagers, for children, there are books that have been written about COVID-19. And of course, someone brought up the fact that if you're teaching very young children, you must also respect what their parents want you to be talking about. And you might not want to, frighten them into talking about the quarantine and lockdown all the time. So be aware that of the age group and the type of students that you're teaching. It's safe to share when you don't have to speak up in front of all your classmates. Thanks, Marco. I like my cup of tea. It's safe to share when students can type their thoughts out and not have to, don't force students to turn on their microphone and tell everyone their problems on the microphone in front of everyone. It can be really, really quite intimidating, especially when it's in a foreign language too. Sometimes allowing them to type their thoughts can be quite reassuring. Or perhaps you can allow them to express their thoughts in different ways. As homework, go and find a photograph or a drawing or a picture that describes how you feel right now. As homework, go and find a piece of music or even a music video that illustrates, that depicts your feelings, your thoughts right now. Young kids, Haga, I think you've got to really consider how young are they and what their parents want. But I think you can still ask them how they're doing with young kids and how they're coping. And as I said, as homework, go away and find a photograph that describes your feelings about homeschooling, your feelings about being at home. Find a piece of music, find a piece of art, find a toy that describes how you feel right now. And of course, the very important question, why? Why did you choose this piece of music? Why did you choose this piece of art? Why this photograph? Why this drawing? Why this video? And that can always act as a springboard to a discussion or a springboard to a child or a teenager or an adult airing those feelings and talking about them. And why not? Absolutely, Tatiana. An emotion diary, nice suggestion, Diana. So with younger learners like teenagers, you might want them to keep a diary, an emotion diary, to get them to talk about their feelings through this lockdown. It's also safe to share knowing that other people are doing it too. If you see your classmates sharing, you feel like it's safe for you to share too. If you see your classmates having similar issues with yourself, feeling the same things as you do or similar things as you, it's reassuring. It feels like, oh, I can share because they're sharing and they relate to me and we understand each other. And sometimes that can really, really be helpful. It's sometimes easier to talk about your feelings when those feelings have already been put into words for you, when it's already been articulated for you. And I'll show you in some of the examples later of how we can do that. You know how some people would say, my friend has a problem. I'm just asking for a friend, not for me, for a friend. It's easier to talk about something when we're pretending that it's someone else's problem. People who use drama in the classroom, role play in the classroom, like Linda says, already know the power of pretending to be someone else. So allowing students to use scenarios, role plays, to help as a vehicle for their own emotions, to share their own thoughts and their own experiences. Absolutely, Fatu, thank you. When they can anchor their feelings to a scenario or a topic. Again, I'll show you some activities where we can help students to anchor those discussions, those feelings to a particular scenario or an activity. And remembering, earlier we said we don't want something to be too negative, at least not at the start. Now, you know your students really well. I don't want to talk, earlier the topic went on to young learners, and I don't want to talk too much about young learners because we all have different teaching circumstances. I tend to teach grown-ups and adults and business people, and I'm hoping that you would adapt what you're hearing today from me to the classes that you teach, to the students that you teach, because you know your students well, you know your classes well. I think if you have a class where you're very close to your students and you've created a dynamic where everyone is happy to make mistakes, happy to be open, what you'll find is that the relationship with not just the teacher, but the relationship with each other, fellow classmates, relationships are strong. And when you have that kind of a dynamic, people are more willing to open up and share their feelings, their thoughts with each other. And that's what you want to aim for, really. A safe environment, exactly, Fatu, a sense of community where you're not just a class, but you are a group of friends and you can open and share and be candid with each other. In that way, the responsibility to listen and to share is not entirely on the teacher, but also with fellow classmates. So you're all working together to support each other, just like a community. Geraldina, yes, if you have never met your student, then you will have to learn to create that rapport, that trust, that relationship virtually, and to create that relationship online. Like, I guess a bit like what I'm doing with you right now is to create credibility, to create a sense of trust between us so that you feel more comfortable and safer to open up to me, but without diving too quickly into a dark, deep topic that students might not want to be dealing with at the moment. So, are you ready to hear some practical activities, some ideas of what you could possibly do in the classroom to get students to open up, perhaps act as a springboard to some discussions? So, here we have a group of activities that I call Choose and Explain. The rationale behind this is you are giving students some choices, A, B, C, D, and by giving them those choices, it takes away the brain power they need to explain their situation from scratch. It acts as a springboard. It articulates the scenario for them and gives them a reference point to talk about their experiences. So here is a meme that's been going around social media. Have you seen this meme? Choose your quarantine house. There are many variations on the internet of this little fun activity. It started as one about celebrities. So here is the question. Who would you rather be in lockdown with? So if you have to be quarantined in a house, who or which house would you choose to be in lockdown with? Would you choose house 1 to be locked down with Justin Bieber, Will Ferrell, Kylie Jenner? Would you choose house number 6 with Beyonce and Britney Spears? Some very different answers. If I'm getting it. Oh, lots of house 5s. What's in house 5? We've got Gordon Ramsay. Why? Oh, great food with Gordon Ramsay. Now, remember, the important question to ask your students is always, why? Personally, I chose house number 4. Why? Because there are 2 really great comedians in house number 4, Tina Fey and Dave Chappelle, and I think they're going to make me laugh, and that's what I'm going to need in these times, is a bit of laughter. You've got George Clooney and Meghan Markle. They both seem like easygoing people who are quite intelligent. You can have an intelligent conversation with them. So for me, I choose house number 4. Obviously, there are no correct answers here, but this is a great way to perhaps even start a lesson or to get students to warm up to talking about the quarantine in a kind of light-hearted way. Nothing too dark and deep, something light-hearted and hypothetical, totally hypothetical. So students don't feel like they have to, they don't feel compelled or obliged to talk about their own lockdown situation. But it could act as a springboard to them talking about their situation. Beyonce can sing, some says. Ellen can entertain. Chris can teach us to keep fit. And Emma Watson, because she's British. Brilliant. Thank you. Thank you for your very detailed answer. Now, obviously, this is something I got off the internet. You can create your own houses. You might say, hey, my students don't know these celebrities. You know, they're not really relevant to my class. Make your own. Now, here is a different version of choose your quarantine house activity. So you've got 6 different houses here. Which house would you prefer to be in? Now, there is, of course, the language teaching aspect. You could be teaching them, you know, vocabulary for describing different types of houses. You can make your own, just like before, as I said, make your own, have 6 different pictures of 6 different types of houses, or even these 6 different interiors. So like, you know, the inside of houses. Which type of house would you prefer? The one with the biggest yard is someone says. I would agree with that. I think the ranch, number 3, the ranch probably has the biggest garden, the biggest yard. So personally, I would pick number 3 because there's just lots of space to run around. Some of you would pick number 1 because it looks cozy. Okay, interesting. The modern house. All right. Okay. So again, here's another activity that you could adapt to suit your students and to suit your country and your teaching circumstances. Here's another variation. This is my favorite one. It's the food edition. So which house would you rather be quarantined in? Assuming that you can only eat the items that are stated in that list. So if you pick house number 1, throughout the entire quarantine, you can only eat snow crab legs, shrimps, oysters, corn, potatoes, and hush puppies. Okay, that's your quarantine house. You could pick house number 3 with, you know, lots of fried chicken and fried fish and yams. Okay, a lot of house number 2s here. Okay, house number 2 looks like a very Italian house with lasagna and ravioli. You've got house number 5. I pick house number 5 because I love Mexican food. You've got empanadas and quesadillas and tacos, which I absolutely love. Lots of fun doing this activity with students, but this could also springboard into a very important point about well-being here, which is diet and healthy eating. Right, talking about the kind of food that we need to be eating to stay healthy. If you're teaching younger children, perhaps this a version of this might be a great springboard to talking about healthy eating and keeping a balanced diet and things like that, which is a very, very important factor in maintaining well-being. If you know your students really well and they're grown-ups, now, mind you, if your students are grown-ups, are adults, and you know them really well, this is a slightly deeper, realistic version of Choose Your Quarantine House. Now, the previous ones are very hypothetical. They're almost funny to do. This one is a bit close to the bone. So if you know your students really well, this one might be something you want to do to get them to really talk about their situation. For me, house number 1 is completely my situation. 3 children under the age of 6 who need to be homeschooled while I work full time. I didn't write this. I found this on the internet. I saw this and thought, oh my goodness, number 1 is my situation. I looked at number 2 and number 3 and number 4, and then I decided perhaps my own situation is probably the better one of the 4, but that's just me. This is a great way to start a discussion about loneliness, yes, like Lama says, about getting along with people, connections, the things you need to survive in a house. It can get quite deep, this discussion. So use this with students that you do know well, and use this with grown-ups, not children. Now, still on the topic of grown-ups, a lot of adult students are now having to work from home. If you've got students who are working from home or who are transitioning to start working from home, you might want them to start thinking about their workspace. Which of these workspaces that I'm going to show you, which of these would be the ideal workspace for you? Now, the first one here, A, you can see a nice window, kind of a bay workspace with lots of bright light coming in, and from the looks of this picture I can see some green trees in the background, and it looks like something nice to look at while you're working. What I would not like about this workspace is the chairs. They look extremely uncomfortable, and I think if I were to sit in those chairs and work all day and write all day, I would have a really, really bad back. But the dog looks pretty nice. Here's another one. Nice and light, very bright office with lots of plants. Always love lots of plants in the office and furry cushions. C is an interesting one. There are no chairs, if you notice. C is a standing workspace. Apparently, very good for your back. You stand at the laptop and you work. And then we have D. Quite a dark office, no windows, a huge desk, lots of computer screens. Which would you choose? A, B, C, or D? D is crazy, I know, right? Some of you love the huge desk. Some of you might say, oh, not for me, it's a bit too much. C is better, okay. Interesting. So using this activity, this could get students thinking about their own workspaces. You could get them to say, for example, hypothetically, who do you think works in these desks? As a little writing activity, pick one of these workspaces and create a character. For example, person who works in workspace D is an IT specialist. He works for this company and now he's working from home. So his company has moved all his computers to his home, etc., etc. So students can create a character, say what they do for a living, and describe the character that uses this workspace. And they can do it for all 4 pictures. Another alternative is for students to get online on Pinterest, for example, and find their own ideal workspace. There are lots of wonderful, beautiful pictures of perfect looking workspaces from home. Get them to find their ideal home office. Or if you want it to be a bit more realistic, if you know your students well, get them to take a photo of their real workspaces from home and share it with the class. They can tell their class what they like about their workspaces and what they don't like about their workspaces. A bit of a show and tell your workspace kind of activity. It's more personal, absolutely, Naseem. Someone mentioned emojis earlier. Getting students to talk about feelings might be a bit tricky. So again, if I articulate those feelings for you, rather than having you to do it from scratch, it's more comforting, it feels safer. So you could say to students, look at these emojis, which of these are you feeling today? A nice way to start the class, perhaps. How do you feel today? You could choose to just do this for 3 minutes and be done with it. Or you could make it into a longer activity where students talk about why they're feeling those ways, if you know your students well enough. Anxious, I hope you're not too anxious, Griselda. Motivated. Oh, thank you for saying that my presentation is motivating. I really appreciate that. Another type of activity you could do with students is to get them to do some brainstorming. Get them to make lists. Get them to write a listicle. You could get them to do this in groups. If you're using breakout rooms, for example, if you're using Zoom as your online teaching platforms, you might have rooms that you can put groups into so that students can work in pairs, work in groups, work in 3s, work in 4s. You can split them into groups and get them to create a list of any of these topics. Things that I wish I had at home. Now, of course, you could do this as a whole class, but doing it as a group and giving them a number like 10 things I wish I had at home or 5 things I wish I had at home forces the pair or the group of students to prioritize. It forces them to discuss it with each other and to come up with the top things that they think should be on the list. So what are the things that you wish you had at home during this lockdown situation? A big garden, yes. A spa. Oh, I like that, a spa. That's a good idea. A cat, a dog, A farm. Okay, so we are clearly craving contact with fellow living things. Swimming pool, a Turkish bath. That's very specific. A fireplace. Okay, a nicer computer, a parlor. Ooh, a parlor. A balcony, nice one. Lots of books. Yeah, we can get lots of books nowadays online. There are a lot of free books available. Library, hand weights. Okay, my own room. Oh, I feel you. I really feel you. A jacuzzi. Oh, I like that. A chalet. A baseball field. Table tennis. Brilliant. A lot of sports here. Okay. Sia singing to me. Nice one. Now, here is what I came up with. I was not as creative as you guys. I love your answers. Some privacy of that. I came up with exercise equipment. Some of you were talking about gyms and exercise equipment. A lot of swimming pools. I hear you. I've got swimming pool in there. A large kitchen is what I came up with. I've got a small kitchen, and trying to cook and manage the kids while doing their homework next to me can be quite chaotic. So a large kitchen. I love this kitchen. I would take this kitchen anytime. Yes, swimming pool. For all those people out there who are saying swimming pool, here you go. A large garden space with a swimming pool. That would be lovely. Although, to be honest, that swimming pool is kind of small. Check this game room out. This games room. If you don't have young children like I do, this games room would probably be heaven. To stay in this room playing games, watching television can be amazing, don't you think? So yeah, I suppose a lot of students who are younger might pick picture number 4 if your students are teenagers. Although in some ways, game number 4 could be a bit like a men's sort of cave, right? A guy's cave to kind of hide out in. A man cave indeed, Mario. Okay, so here's one of the ideas. Here's another idea, a variation on the topic. Top 5 things I want to do when this is over. Again, put them in groups. Have them to prioritize. There are lots of things you want to do when this is over. What are your top 5? Why? Always ask the question, why? Go to the disco, go out with friends, eat KFC. Okay, let's see if I've got some of your ideas. Visit your parents, go to church, go skiing. Nice one. Have a big party. Okay. I've got have a dinner party at home. I would love to have a dinner party and invite my friends and have a nice evening chatting with my friends. I really do miss a nice home kind of feel, of a dinner party. Hug everyone. I would like to hug everyone I meet after this pandemic is over, like over. Definitely, some of you say go to a concert or go clubbing, go see a live band, nice one. For me, I would like to go to a theater, go see a show of some sort. That would be really nice. Or just go to the movies. Yes, indeed. Go to the beach. Lovely. Spend some quality time with parents. That's definitely something I would really like to do. Spend some quality time with the people you love, with family, with parents. And a lot of you were saying travel. Yes, definitely. I would love to go on a trip, go traveling again. That would be something lovely to do. So getting students to think about, think positive. This is going to be over at some point. Let's keep some hope in us and look forward to those things that we can do when this is over. And this list is a way to instill a bit of that positivity. Now, of course, we can talk about hypothetical things, but we should also help students to appreciate what they have at present. Part of maintaining well-being is the ability to be thankful and grateful for the things we have. So setting them a task like top 10 things I enjoy doing at home, such as perhaps watching television, reading, sleeping. I know a lot of my teenage students would say sleeping. Playing board games. Now, this is me. I love playing board games, and I love playing board games with my husband, my children, my friends on Skype. Love playing board games. Some of you said baking, cooking, the ability to, stay at home and bake with children or yourself or with your partner, trying out different recipes you find on the internet. Or, if you have a fantastic games room, maybe playing computer games might be something you really enjoy doing. And just getting them to focus on the things that are real, that they do enjoy, the positive things that they do have, so that they can keep doing those things. If you enjoy doing these things, let's keep doing them. Also, part of maintaining your well-being is the ability to do something for others. When we are able to perform acts of kindness and do things for others, it helps alleviate stress levels. It helps our students and ourselves to feel better, to feel more positive. If you look at the this website, mentalhealth.org.uk, you'll find a page called Random Acts of Kindness. And there is a long list of suggestions of things that you can do to be kind to others. Some things are really simple, like number 1, call a friend you haven't spoken to in a while, or number 7, help with a household chore. You could say this to your teenage students or even your younger learners. Today, every day, you have to do one thing to help mummy at home, whether it's tidying up, putting the dishes in the dishwasher, putting your dirty laundry in the laundry basket. Every day you have to do one thing to help out at home. It could be something as simple as number 4, send someone a joke on WhatsApp or on your phone. Send someone something funny just to cheer them up. Or if you want to do something bigger, number 9, number 10, donate to food banks, give money to charity. Cook a meal for someone that you know is in lockdown and can't leave the house because they need to self-isolate. Right? All these little things could be things that you can do as an act of kindness to others. And they could also be challenges that you set for your students to do for others. They don't have to do all 10. You could say, for today, let's choose one of these 10 to do. This brings me to the next idea of checklists and goals. This is a great website, actionforhappiness.org. And every month, not just during the pandemic, but every month, they produce these lovely calendars where you get to, when you follow the instructions and you do something that makes you happy. So let's look at today. Today is the 7th of May. What does it say? The 7th of May. Let someone you know, let someone you love know how much they mean to you. So this is a challenge for all of you watching this webinar out there. Okay, your task, your homework, so to speak, for today is to let someone you love know how much they mean to you. Not just say, hey, I love you, but to actually let them know why they're so important to you. What do they mean to you? Or it could be something simple like number 16. Look at what you do on the 16th of May. It says, look around you and notice 5 things that you find meaningful. I know that we can't go out of the house, but let's look around us, because there's so many things even in our houses that we look at every day that we miss. What are the 5 things that are meaningful? Diana, do call your mum after the webinar. Big hugs to you and your mum. So download this calendar, use it with your students, get your students to use it, and do the little tasks every day as challenges. And then when you come back to class, you can share it with each other. You can say, oh, I did this challenge, and and this is what I did. This is who I called, and this is how it made me feel. And of course, this is optional. Students don't have to share if they don't want to. But when they do little tasks like this, very often they feel like they want to tell each other what they've done. Because well-being is not just one thing. Well-being is maintained by a variety of things. If you look at this 5 ways to well-being is maintained by connecting with other people. So getting students to brainstorm 5 top ways of connecting with people during a lockdown. Play a game on Skype with a friend. Watch a film with your friend virtually. have dinner, have a virtual dinner with your friend. Do PE with Joe in the morning with a friend doing the same thing, and then send each other photos. What are some ways, some ideas, some suggestions of connecting with other human beings during this lockdown? How can we be active? Top ways of being active, although you're stuck at home. Do yoga by watching a YouTube video. Do PE with Joe in the morning. Run around your garden, run around your flat. There are lots of memes on the internet of athletes, footballers doing exercise in their apartments and in their houses. Maybe you could use that as for some ideas. Maybe students can share what they've been doing at home to stay active. Take notice of the things around you. Like earlier we said, find 5 things around you that are meaningful. Take notice of the sounds, the tastes of the food you eat. Now, I'm going to show you a couple of mindfulness activities that will help with this aspect of well-being so that students and yourself learn to take notice. Giving is important. Like we said earlier, random acts of kindness can make us feel better. First of all, they might distract us from our problems, but when we are kind to others, it creates happiness within us. And we're teachers, we know the importance of the orange one, learn. Learn something new every day. It doesn't have to be language related. Learn something new every day. So you could get students to do that as a challenge. Learn something new every day, and at the start of the lesson, you can go around and say, what have you learned that's new? It could be something small, it could be something big. Critical incidents is something I really love using, just not just in the pandemic situation, but I'm an intercultural trainer, and I talk and I write books about communication skills and intercultural skills. Critical incidents are very often used by intercultural skills trainers. They are basically small stories or mini case studies that show you a problem or a misunderstanding. Students then have to say what they might do in this situation, or they might say what they would advise the person in this situation. It's a great way of getting them to pretend to be someone else, to put themselves in someone else's shoes. A fictional situation that might bring out some reality in them. So here's an example. Ever since the start of the lockdown, Harvey finds it difficult to sleep at night. He stays up worrying about his parents and all the crazy things that are happening in the world. He's waking up at 11 o'clock every day and spending most of the day in front of the TV in his pajamas. Oh dear. So you ask students, what would you do to help Harvey? Now, remembering that you are not telling students to share their own scenarios, you're asking them to suggest or give advice or help this person in this situation. And this is a great way to bring up topics like healthy living, the importance of having a routine that you follow every day to help with well-being and mental health, the importance of staying active, for example, getting dressed every day even. A lot could come out of discussing this little critical incident, and you might have students then sharing their own stories, their own realities with you because of this critical incident. Some of you have to go because you have a class. Thank you for coming. I have a few more slides, a few more ideas. So if you can stay, we have another nearly 10 minutes to go for this webinar. So if you can stay for 10 more minutes, I promise you there'll be a few more practical ideas that will be given to you. If not, you can watch a recording of this. It will be posted on the Macmillan website and the Macmillan YouTube channel. So here is a weekly self-care checklist. If you want to be more direct about self-care, perhaps if you're teaching teenagers, for example, young adults, you might give them this checklist, or even young learners. So we've got Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and students will then have to tick what they have done today. So did I get enough sleep? Did I get out of bed on time? Because keeping a routine can be important to keeping a healthy mind. Did I brush my teeth? Did I take my vitamins? Did I have a snack? Did I get some exercise? Did I connect with friends? Did I do something creative? Did I meditate and relax? Here's another alternative to a checklist. You could do this instead. I really like the part that says be mindfully present to a sound or a song, a feeling, something you see. So having that moment, even for a couple of minutes a day, to just practice mindfulness and noticing a sound, noticing a feeling, noticing something you see in the house. And I really, really like the last one on this list. It says, do one thing that you'll be glad you did later. Maybe that might be exercise. Maybe that might be eating healthily. What is one thing that you can do now? Or maybe it's being kind to other people. What is one thing that you do now that you could be really happy for later? So remembering those 5 things again, okay? Also, mindfulness. Really, really important to be mindful, to stay in this this wheel that you see, taking notice, the green part that says taking notice, right? So how many of you do mindfulness activities in your classrooms? And how many of you do not know anything about mindfulness? Just to give me an idea of how much I need to explain. How many of you already do mindfulness activities? And some of you might not know anything about mindfulness. Okay, so quite a range of people here. Some of you already do it, some of you don't know anything about it. This is a whole new topic on its own. So yes, it needs a whole other workshop, but mindfulness is about, and it's a huge buzzword. It's used in schools these days. It's used in companies and businesses these days. And it's all about being aware and taking notice of things around you, of your mind, your emotions, your thoughts, but also the smells, the sights, the tastes that's around you. Being mindful is said to be able to help us reduce stress levels, keep us calm, and help us to gain a more objective perspective, a different perspective on our situation, on our stressful situation. So here are some suggestions, some practical suggestions of some mindfulness activities that you can do with your students. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, what can you see? Now, if you're doing this exercise for the first time, your students might say, sorry, what? What do you mean? I mean exactly that. What can you see? Can you describe what you can see around you? Oh, there's a computer around me. My wall is green, brown, and beige. They might start to describe every single item around them. Maybe you might want to pick one. Oh, you say your wall is green, brown, and beige. Can you tell me about your wall? A little bit more about your wall. Why are there 3 colors? Are there any pictures on your wall? What kind of textures is it? Is it a wallpaper? What are you eating is a nice one. You have read my mind. I'm just about to come to that. What are you feeling? What can you feel right now? And this might not just be about emotions. It could just simply be, what can you feel in your hand right now? I'm holding a highlighter. How does that highlighter feel in your hand? Does it feel smooth or rough? If you closed your eyes and felt the highlighter, what can you feel? Describe it in words. What can you smell? It might seem really boring being at home, but I bet you there are lots of sights and smells that you haven't quite noticed. And if you just take that 1 minute of silence to just take notice, you might notice things that you've never noticed before. What can you hear? The cars on the road? My neighbor's baby crying? Another neighbor playing classical music? What can you hear? Oh, I love that banana bread my daughter's just made. I really want the banana bread right now, Katya. Mindful speaking. Now, this is really important. Mindful interactions, right? When students are talking and other students are listening. Are we really listening or are we multitasking? Are we really listening or are we thinking about something else? Getting students to really mindfully speak and listen. When we're speaking, really speak. And when we're listening, really listen. Asking the question, how does your body feel? Especially if, students seem tired, yeah? How does your hand feel? There are some wonderful videos on YouTube of hand massages. I just saw some recently. I just thought I would love to do that with my students at the start of a lesson. While doing a speaking activity, get them to give themselves a hand massage. Show them basics of hand massage and get them to do it. Do it right now. Do it right now while you're listening to me. Press the part of your hand in between your fingers and give it a little press. The part right under your thumb, give it a little press. Get students to do that. It is such a relaxing thing to do. Watch a video on hand massage on YouTube and learn a few tricks, and then get your students to do it. The raisin activity, I'm just about to come to that. Thank you for suggesting tasting a raisin. You've read my slides. Get students to bring a raisin to class. When I say to class, I mean to the laptop. And then, or if they don't have a raisin, bring some food, a fruit, perhaps a banana, a food that they've been eating a lot of, and then get them to taste it, to really talk about how does it look? How does it feel? How does it smell? How does it taste? A raisin's a good one because the skin of the raisin feels very different from the inside of a raisin, and you can get students to slowly describe those sensations to you. And in doing that, in paying full attention to that one raisin, they are being mindful. They are focusing fully in the present. Their worries fade away, and you're getting them to really focus on the present. You can do the same with music. Okay, play a piece of music for them. Ask them, what instruments do you hear? Play a short piece of music, maybe something that is 30 seconds long, and ask them to visualize a picture in their mind's eye. Then get them to describe the picture they see. Play a piece of music and ask them to imagine a story unfolding in their mind. Or perhaps a character. What character does this music describe? What emotions does this music bring up? And what you're really doing is you're getting them to fully be in that moment, listening, paying attention to the music that they're listening to. Finally, remembering that we need to be kind to ourselves. Remind students to find time to do something that brings them joy. It can be so overwhelming when we are trying to juggle work and family life and getting those Skype calls with our parents in, and sometimes we just need to find some time for ourselves and do something that we enjoy doing. And to pat ourselves on our backs and say, hey, we're doing a great job. Find time to recognize what an amazing job you're doing. Treat yourself. If you like ice cream, get some ice cream in that freezer and eat some ice cream. If you like reading, treat yourself to some new books. Watch a program on Netflix. Treat yourself. Don't forget about yourself. Don't constantly criticize yourself for what you've done or what you're doing. You're doing a great job. And if you're a parent like me and you shout at your children and then you feel really bad about it after and you feel like you're constantly judging yourself, don't. Forgive yourself. Times are difficult, and it's difficult for everyone. Appreciate yourself instead and invest in yourself. And all of you right now are investing in yourself by being in this webinar, by taking some time out to connect with fellow teachers here on this platform, by being here and listening to me. So take that time out and invest in yourself. Show yourself some kindness. Show yourself some compassion. So remembering as teachers, what can you do? You can get students to share their feelings and share their thoughts. You can ask questions, and remembering that our job is to listen to understand, not to listen to judge, not even to listen to give advice. Our job is simply to listen to understand. And very often students find their own way by being able to talk about it. Cultivate positive thinking and cultivate hope. if necessary, offer that student one-on-one time. Perhaps even one-on-one text messaging can help. And remember this, I said this at the beginning of the webinar and I say it again now, if the student really needs support, perhaps we don't have the expertise to do so, prepare a list of resources that you can go to if you have a student who might need that support. And if it seems urgent to you, do contact professionals, do refer them to experts and professionals who can give them the counseling and the help that they need. Don't feel responsible for their well-being all on your own. We need to look after ourselves too. Joseph Campbell, the author, said, "Opportunities to find deeper powers within ourselves come when life seems most challenging." Life definitely seems extremely challenging now for many, many of us. But it is through times like these that we reach deep inside ourselves and find the power and the strength to be better than we've ever been. So reach inside yourself and remember, we need to support our students' well-being, but we need to look after ourselves too. I hope you've enjoyed this webinar. If you fancy it, do keep in touch. Connect with me on Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. And if you've tried some of the activities that I've suggested in today's webinar, do feel free to let me know and give me some feedback on how they've worked out for you, how they've helped discussions or helped your students' well-being in the classroom. I'm really open to feedback, and I would love to hear more from you about how you've put this into practice. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you've any questions, do feel free to ask. I'm right here. I'm really pleased to see that many of you are inspired or motivated or have enjoyed this webinar. I'm really, really happy to hear that.